that's kind of how it is. But for like mob guys, it's a certain level of like they get respect.
Yeah, it's an interesting like in the internet culture where it's not the same as it was, and now everyone can whip out a camera and whatever. I never knew any of those guys, but I was in a restaurant a few different times where it was understood that one of those guys walked in, and it's like, oh. Yeah, let's see. All right, so go all the way down, Danny. I want to go past his professional career.
I think he's been the coach since 21.
Right, but I want to see, I believe he was in, keep going, it's a while. He had a long career. All right, okay. So Big Three, 2017, Billups was a player in that. 2020, November 2020, so a year and a half after that 2019 game, he's hired as an assistant coach to the Clippers with Tyronn Lue. And then he's named head coach of the Trailblazers less than a year later in June 2021. Wasn't he in broadcasting before that?
I think he did some. Yeah, I think he did. I think it was at
with
ESPN,
ESPN, which is over here.
So is Paul Pierce as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Very interesting. Over here, dangerously close to where some New York games were being played. I'm not making any claims here. I'm just pointing out some geography. That's it. This is all allegedly. But that's interesting.
And again, I'm not saying this. I was told by people that Paul Pierce has played in New York games before. But then again, like there have been stories that baseball players, I'm not going to name which ones, played in these poker games. Like that's public information.
Yeah, and it also does, to be clear, it does, just playing in the games doesn't make you guilty or anything. For all we know, and actually it's more probable than not, especially if they're not named in this indictment, a lot of them were marks. They were quote unquote, as you said, the term was used, face cards, who were brought there for two reasons: to be a mark for their money, to be taken for a fucking ride, and also to attract other people who have deep pockets without a high profile publicly to come there and be taken for a ride, which makes a lot of sense. It's just sad that it would appear that sometimes it was literally their friends, quote unquote, inviting them to these games to get taken.
Yeah, and I think, that's, if that truly is what happened in the Garnett type thing. I know Antonio Gates, it's been reported he played at one of the games in Miami.
You had that early.
I did. Yeah, I did. Pablo Torre then put it out, which Pablo's bigger than I am. It just is what it is. But I think
you don't have a hashtag though.
Well, he doesn't. But what I think that's cool about that is it gave me kind of some confirmation that the reporting that I'm getting is good info.
And what were they saying about Gates? What was the specifics? Gates just that he played in one?
Yeah, Gates played at the game in Miami, which is referenced here. I've also heard another prominent athlete, a boxer, played there, and others as well. I think that's the...
Does it rhyme with Schmoid Schmayweather?
No.
Okay.
No. It rhymes with... I won't say it. I put it out though. They were game in the Hamptons.
Oh yeah, I saw that. How many? June 2023, by the way, during dangerously close to free agency tampering period.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
And again, like I think people see this money. It's like you go to a game, you lose $105K at a game. I went to Hustler and lost $4 or $5 grand. It's like that's a decent amount of money to lose in a game.
That's a tough night.
You lose $100K. I mean, if it's over 2 or 3 games.
Yeah.
It's just on both accounts. It didn't have to happen, and it all goes back to the theory we're talking about with the mob. It's a lot of these defendants mob wise are young. And it's I think you're starting to see some of the younger guys starting to get in a little bit deeper to some of the violence and willing to take chances.
What do you think is causing that, the fact that they're having success now suddenly with, like, let's call it like Gen Z and millennials and recruiting? Is it the pop culture aspect?
Maybe. I think, a lot of these kids, I've always said, like, if you're a family member of these people, it's pretty likely that you'll get into the life. So like if your father's a mob guy, everybody wants to do what their dad did,
Right.
And I think to be a mob guy, yeah, there is a part of like, I'm a cool guy. And then like, let's say you live in Howard Beach, Queens, being a May guy is big thing. I mean, how small communities are, I know like in the town I live in,
oh, dude,
like,
in Jersey, it's,
yeah,
and
like those little towns like that like I'm in, like, I'm not some celebrity, but like I get recognized. It's cool. Like people I see at bar store or whatever, like that's kind of how it is. But for like mob guys, it's a certain level of like they get respect.
Yeah, it's an interesting like in the internet culture where it's not the same as it was, and now everyone can whip out a camera and whatever. I never knew any of those guys, but I was in a restaurant a few different times where it was understood that one of those guys walked in, and it's like, oh, no one's whipping out their phones. You know,
no,
it's very.
And like I said, when you live in like a small like Staten Island type place where everybody knows everybody, you know, sometimes you just get into the life because it allows you to like have like you could be a businessman. You might own a car dealership or something. It allows you like a leg up in like negotiating and shit, you know? So it's a lot different now. You know, you don't have to kill somebody to get in. You don't have to be a big drug trafficker to get in. Like a lot of the businesses that these guys are involved in, not poker obviously, but a lot of them are involved in legitimate businesses.
So how do you now, in the old days when it was pure, you know, for a guy to get made, very often it was he had to make his bones first.
Yeah, that's
right. So that's not by making your bones, it's you kill a guy. So they're not doing that now. So what are you hearing are the equivalents of them making their bones to get made? They're
not doing it. They
just crime.
The method of
money making.
The method of inviting at this point, and I'm going to tell you something that's pretty wild that not a lot of people will ever bring up. There are guys in this indictment. I'm not going to say who. One of which there's a question of years ago he was involved in a crime. He gave statements to the police. There's paperwork on it. He mentioned other people's names. Now, in that world, that is no good.
That's
don't do that.
That's a cheese-eating rat bastard.
Right. You can't, like even like, and it's as simple as like if you're on a Fed case and they call you down and you like start making small talk with a cop, like that's no good, you know? But one of them in this case, you know, that's a question. He's involved in this now. And it's like, well, how? Like, why are you dealing with him? But I talked to somebody and they told me like nowadays it's as simple as you could be a stone cold rat, but if you can make money for people.
They're letting you around?
Nobody cares. Some people, nobody cares. Now I'm not saying every one of them guys is like that because there's still some people in that life that, you know, are dead in the wool gangsters, but are they going to?
That's wild.
Yeah. And that's kind of the real concern that I have is just how as an organization can you continue like that? Because we've seen it just get brittled down through government scrutiny and all that sort of thing. And I think that's another thing. And we've seen that in life in general where values are gone now. I was listening, driving up here, I was listening to WIP.
Oh,
and they had Seth Joyner on who played for the Eagles. And he was telling this really fascinating story about how when he was coming up as a player, anybody that could provide him some sort of guidance or advice, he would listen to. And he told a story about, I think it was maybe 10 or so years ago, he was an intern for the Bills. He was a linebacker intern. He was helping coach. And he went to the head coach, Rex Ryan at the time, or one of the Ryans, and said,
yeah, it was Rex.
Yeah, and he said, you know, we're not getting enough time with these kids, like where we can actually teach them something. Because nowadays the league, like everything's mandated practice-wise. And he asked the kids, he said, give me 15 minutes after practice. I just want to show you guys some things. He said the first day, they all came. They never came again. And he was kind of trying to explain how like kids today are just way different. Like the level of just like value and understanding of like older people and like values and ethics are just like kind of gone. And I relate it to kind of what we're talking about here because the gangsters that were coming up, you know, that you saw in the news from the 80s, you know, the John Gottis, the Chin Gigantes, those kind of people, they grew up significantly different than these younger kids today. These younger kids today didn't have to struggle for anything. They live in nice houses. They can run up bookie tabs and say, fuck you. You know who my father is? That's the best thing. When someone says that, you know who my father is?
Yeah, they're a little
like
pussy.
It's just a pussy move. Yeah. Like if you lose, you know, a good amount of money, I'm not saying you have to, you know, if you can't pay it back, you get on a fucking payment plan, you know, but to just like not pay it and be like, fuck you, you know,
you know who my dad is? That's crazy.
That's the kind of shit you're dealing with these people out here. And, again, if there was an informant, I asked one guy, I said, I named the guy that is a known cooperator. He's on YouTube. I said, if he was in your neighborhood today and he can make money, would someone work with him? He said, without a doubt. They wouldn't even give a shit. There's no,
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.